Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the Deeper Seerah course. Thank you for joining, and I hope that you have the same wondrous journey that I had when I was studying the Seerah, and the journeys that we've had together with other students as well. Because once you, Sara Yasiru, when you travel on this journey, you become travel companions. And the more you spend time in the remembrance of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the more you build the roadmap of the Seerah in your mind. You are literally a companion of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at that time. So then not only do you suffer the pain and the joyous moments, and you can taste, smell, and see and hear everything, you become companions, and your love for each other, which the dots join at Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, will grow also. So we hope that everybody gains this experience from the Seerah. This is the introductory set of lessons. There's probably going to be about 8-9 lessons here, inshallah, probably a bit more. And I've titled it Deeper Seerah, because we're going to go deeper than other people normally do. So we're going to look at it not only from a spiritual lens, is what most people do, but we're going to look at it from an academic lens and a critical lens and an anthropological, sociological, societal, and even psychological lens. So that's the reason why I've named this course Deeper Seerah. And it's going to be, this is the introductory methodology, but the actual Seerah is going to be, obviously, Seerah is always split into two parts. So you have the Meccan phase and then the Medinan phase. And people call it, wondrous names like there's Meccan Dawn and Medinan Nights. That name's been taken, so I can't use that. So I called it Meccan Beginnings and Medinan Flourishings. So then that will give you an idea of what we're trying to achieve here. So before the Seerah, just like before every other science, we should know why we're studying the science. And I don't like to jump straight into a science because I find that very boring. It betrays something about myself, my background as a historian. I graduated in history. And I like the nitty-gritty. I don't like the micro. I like the macro. Sorry, what's it called? The macro. I don't like the wide lens. I like the small lens. I like to look at things in detail. I find the most amazement and the most lazzat, as they say in Darulum circles, in the macro, when we look at things with a microscopic lens. So we're going to have a look at the methodology, and the reason for looking at the methodology is it gives you a good framework, a good grounding point of where to start your journey on the Seerah. Otherwise, as I was mentioning earlier on, it's not a case of you're just opening yourselves and I'm pouring everything into you. No, this is a critical analysis of the Seerah. So it's a case of, yes, some parts are going to be poured into you, but for the most part, I want to engage with you. I want you to ask questions, even if they're awkward questions, even if they're things that you think you shouldn't ask. I want to engage. So you're basically tooled up with a database of knowledge, and not knowledge, passive knowledge, but active, dynamic, critical knowledge that you take forward in your own lives when you teach the Seerah or when you implement it in your lives. And you'll be given a set of tools whereby you can then open up any other historical Islamic work and use the same tools and be able to come to the same conclusions by yourself, thus aiding you in your own journeys through life. So without further ado, let's start. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Right, okay. So as every class, we have classroom etiquettes. Whenever you start a course, they have a classroom etiquettes. When you start university, they'll go through the same things. However, for Muslims, their etiquettes go a bit more further because we have something etiquette, the word adab can translate into etiquette, but it doesn't give the complete meaning. The one of the closer meanings for adab is to put everything in its right place. So as being Muslim students of sacred knowledge, there is a bit more required of us. So number one, we should know that if we don't come prepared, we won't take anything from it. There is an idiom that goes somewhat like sacred knowledge will not give to the one who is not ready to receive. So if you're not pure in your intentions, if you haven't set time aside and cleared your mind and are actually ready to engage with the material, you're not going to benefit. So we want everybody to benefit. Normally, people benefit from things that they like. So if you enjoy this course, you will benefit, you will come prepared. And the way to enjoy this course is to try to understand it, ask questions where you don't understand. Come prepared, which means please be on time. Timekeeping is very important. Sometimes, yes, teachers are late. I try never to be late, but this technology here is new for me. So, excuses if I am 5 or 10 minutes late, but inshallah, I'll try never to be late. Be in wudu, because wudu is an act of ibadah by itself. And we have ample evidence from scholars from the past where they wouldn't even touch a blank sheet of paper without wudu. Because paper, which we take for granted today, was a real luxury in the past. They used to use what's known as vellum. Vellum is animal skin that's been bashed and beaten and spread out. So it looks like paper. That's why old books last 1,000 years, 2,000 years. We still have them, whereas a paper book wouldn't last that long. Vellum is bulky, it's heavy, it's expensive. Paper is a real luxury. So the value of paper was such for those scholars of old that even a blank sheet of paper they wouldn't put on the ground. It's actually khilaf al-awla, khilaf al-adab, to put blank sheet of paper or a book. A book aside from the Quran, any book of knowledge, even if it's secular knowledge, if it's against the custom of your land, you're not supposed to do it. And we all come from the same background, I think. And in our backgrounds, it's against adab to put books on the floor. So always be in wudu. It's ibadah and it's the correct protocol before you start a course of Islamic study or any study. We know the story of Imam Malik where before he gave any hadith, right, a woman would knock on his people would knock on his door and he would send his female servant out and she would say fatwa or something else. If it was something else, she would deal with it. If it was fatwa, Imam Malik would get ready and come out. So the adab of what he was going to do, he knew people were going to ask a fatwa, and it may have involved the quoting of a hadith as well. So he would wear his best clothes, put perfume on, and sit on an elevated cushion and narrate a hadith, because they were weighty words, and those words demanded that he take weighty action in the way he was giving those words out. 1 second, just bear with me. And your clothing, make sure your clothing is pure. The etiquettes of the student of knowledge is to wear good, pure, and best clothing. We know the ayah in the Quran, when you go to the masajid, wear your best clothes, wear your finery. We know from Hanafi fiqh also that any clothing that's not befitting to sit in front of somebody of respect, be that a judge, be that your father or your teacher or a manager, certainly it's not befitting to be in front of your Lord in. This is an act of worship we're doing. We're showing our Lord that we are learning about your Habib, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So be prepared, wear your best clothing. Imam Abu Bakr as-Siddiq would tell all of the educated students of knowledge from the Sahaba, he would force them to dress differently. Why? He said, separate yourself from everybody else, because lest you be insulted by the riffraff of society. You've got a status with Allah, you've got a status in society. If you're walking down the street and some idiot happens to insult you, if a normal person gets insulted, it's not nice. But if a student of knowledge gets insulted, it's even more not nice. So put different clothes on. And likewise, the Ahlul Bayt at some time during the Fatimi Empire, I think it's the Mamluks as well, they were forced to wear green turbans to identify who they were. And especially today in Iran, you'll see that the ashraf, the sayyids, they wear black turbans, whereas all their other mullahs wear white turbans to differentiate yourself. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq would get them to have their sleeves long. Why? Because back in the day, clothing didn't have pockets. They would put their notes, their vellum notes, they would roll them up as scrolls and put them into their very baggy sleeves. Wear perfume. We know that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam loved perfume, and out of the three things from this world that he loved, he says, from your world that I love, one of them was perfume, the second one was women, and the third one was prayer, was the coolness of his eyes. Prayer's not something tangible. Women's qualities, what he loved, were not tangible. So the only tangible object from this creation he said he loved was perfume. Imam Malik says that if you spend a third of your wealth on perfume every month, that's not seen as squandering or extravagance. Because when you wear perfume, after a while, you don't smell the perfume anymore, but everybody else smells the perfume. And as you're giving charity, and it invites the malaika. Smells push them away, perfume invites them. And it's certainly befitting that when you're talking about Rasulullah or Allah, that you perfume yourself. You come prepared, wearing nice clothes and perfume. And you have a book and a pen. It's nice to have a nice book. If you do take notes, I do encourage notes. If you don't take them, it's okay, but I do encourage. Have a nice book, a separate book. It's a hefty subject. It's a beautiful subject. Show your love for the subject. Have a special book. One of those nice girly books that you get from those shops like the Card Factory, I don't know what is it called, the Works or whatever. You get these really nice books. Get one of those books and keep that book separate for your notes. There's an art to note taking. There are a few methods to note taking. I'm not going to go through them here now. You can Google them. Different subjects require slightly different approaches to note taking, but it's always a good idea. Most people, they take notes, but they can never reuse the notes again because they haven't learned the art of proper note taking. Correct adab, correct comportment, which means that don't lounge. You'll see now that when they advertise Islamic courses, they'll have somebody with a tablet in front of him and he's literally lying down on his stomach and he's studying the sacred sciences. Allahu Akbar. This is not a joke. You're not playing a computer game on your tablet. You are studying the most heaviest subjects in creation. You are mentioning the name, the heaviest name, Allah, and then the heaviest name in creation, His Habib, Muhammad Mustafa, Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And yet you do that lying down. So this is not the correct adab, not the correct comportment. We are not of those people that sit in the mosques with our feet towards the Qibla, or in our houses with our feet towards the Qibla, or reading the Quran while we are reclining, or putting the Quran on the floor. Have correct adab. You want to gain, the secrets of gain is adab. The secrets of everything in life is adab. Even a non-Muslim can teach you this science. Even a non-Muslim can teach you fiqh. Some non-Muslims can teach you fiqh better than Muslims can. But it's empty and it's dry. There's nothing in it. Had the adab been there, comportment, everything in its right place, ihsan, had the ihsan been in there, you would have benefited so much more. This is why we say take knowledge from Muslims only and not from Western universities, because you don't benefit otherwise. You can only really benefit if you take knowledge from someone who has a spiritual state. And his state is what's rubbing off on you. This is why we say have correct sohbah. You sit knee to knee. You look at your teacher. He sits looking at you. You feel them. His aura connects with your aura. His emotions connect with your emotions. His gaze looks through your gaze. And from your reactions, he can gauge, did he understand me or did he not? These you can't get from studying behind tablets, but you can still get something from the voice, the stress in the voice. The stress in the voice comes from the heart. And as the heart quivers, the voice stresses. And you know the hal of the one who's delivering, and then you pick that up as well. And you're going to miss all that if you lie down on your back with the tablet in the air, or you lie down on your belly with the tablet in front of you. That's not how it's done. Every student knows themselves, so please be mindful and do things in the right way, and things start happening in the right way in your life. Asking questions is good. Some of us come from schools where it's been frowned upon. That's not a good style. That's not my style. And that's certainly not the style of the Salaf al-Salihin in the early generations, right? Questions were actively encouraged in the circles of Imam Abu Hanifa. There were three levels of students. There was the first tier students that sat very close to Imam Abu Hanifa in a very tight circle. And then there were the second tier students, and then there were the third tier students that were the ones who were come and go. So, oh, they're passing and they see a gathering and they sit down and they show up a few times a week, and then the second tier were the ones who were okay students, and then the first tier were the elite students. Imam Abu Hanifa would pose a question to the ones right at the back, say, what do you think? So he would actually ask the nobodies, the ones who didn't have a clue, he would ask them, what do you think? And they were forced to give their answers. There was no shyness, there was no hesitation, there was no, oh, will we say the wrong thing? No. What's your answer? And then if they obviously couldn't answer, right? Or the answers were limited and deficient. And then he would ask the second group who would furnish a better answer. But it still wouldn't be up to scratch. And then he would go to his elite students and he would say, right now, you answer the question properly. And that's how we learn. So this is an engaging class, and don't feel shy to let me listen to your voice. A question is music to my ears. So I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher of the sacred sciences, alhamdulillah, and I'm a teacher of history when I can, and I'm a teacher of English and IT as well, sometimes IT. So this means I'm bringing in an approach that is probably going to be a bit different from your traditional madrasa approach. Madrasa teachers are like university teachers, where they learn the sciences and then they teach. So that's why university teachers are not the best teachers, because they're just regurgitating information and you're expected to grasp it all by yourself and then graduate. Whereas people who have PGCEs or are primary school teachers or are secondary school teachers, they study the art of teaching. So that's why they're engaging and good teachers. Unless somebody is naturally, a very charismatic person and they learn as they go along, you'll find that some teachers can be very dry. So the way I'm going to present this course is not going to be in the traditional way. I go around the houses a lot. The reason I do that is because I want the engagement of the students. I want the engagements of the students, and I want them to do a lot of the thinking for themselves. And it's through their thinking that we will grow together. Because there may be a question that somebody wanted to ask but couldn't ask it properly, didn't have the vocabulary, and somebody else asked it, and you got what you wanted to know. My methodology is by me making it boring in certain areas and making it exciting in other areas. I build the dots like a picture that you fill in with just dots. So I'm going to give you the dots, you're going to fill in the picture, and you're going to get the aha moment. When you get the aha moment, that's it. Then you're hooked. Then you'll understand everything, and then you'll start to enjoy every lesson, inshallah. Not only will the penny drop, as they say, but bags of gold will drop, inshallah. Is everybody still with me? Can they hear me?
Yes.
Why has my thing frozen? Okay, that's good, right. So just some classroom etiquettes again. Imam Bukhari was asked to come and teach some students. His reply was that knowledge has its own value and it doesn't go to anybody, but one travels to it. Today, we're in a position in England where we pay people to come to our houses. This was something that wasn't done traditionally, because knowledge is to be sought. Knowledge isn't so cheap that you pay for it and it comes to you. So it wasn't just Imam Bukhari who did this. Many people did this. They would refuse and say, who do you think you are? You want knowledge? Come to us. It's not something worthless. Yeah, anything worth fighting for or paying for is worth something. So come and get it. Put the effort in. So note-taking is easier today than it was in the past. So what excuse do we have today for making good notes from lessons? In the past, students in the madaris, even your local mosque, right now, I'm going to give you a scene. Imagine you're in Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's mosque, Masjid al-Nabawi, al-Sharif, 1400 years ago. You're in a building where in the summer, the temperature is 40 plus. You're in a building where at Fajr time, there's no lighting. So you're sitting next to people whose faces you cannot see. You don't even know if your lines are straight. The floor is sand. It's hot, it's sticky. When students of knowledge would study in gatherings 1,000 years ago, 1,100 years ago, do you think they had deodorant? Do you think they could afford nice clothes? Do you think they even had the luxury of space where you've got huge mosques today? Yes, for sure, there were huge mosques, but not every gathering is done in a huge mosque. It's done in small circles in the houses of shuyukh, and it's still done today in the houses of shuyukh. They didn't have electricity. They had candles. Now imagine the sheikh reading. Mostly shuyukh would read from memory. But if they've got some papers in front of them, there's only one candle that's lighting that paper. And the whole class is sitting there of 20, 30 students, very, very close. And you can't see the faces of the ones that are sitting in the third row. And they're sitting so close, and it's a desert environment. It's hot, it's smelly, it's probably stinky. The surfaces are rough. They're probably using their knees to write with. They're using qalam dawad. Qalam dawad, the old way of using a reed stick and a pot of ink. And if they could take notes, what excuse do we have sitting in front of a laptop on a nice table in an air-conditioned room with electricity? Bear this in mind. And especially when the humidity was very, very high, they were dripping in sweat. Their paper's wet, their clothes are wet, the wetness is rubbing off on the person next to them, their pen is wet, and yet they were studying because they gave the haqq to what they were doing. There are books, as I said, there are books on study methods. You can check those study methods up for yourself. That should, inshallah, everybody can do that research and we can come prepared. So this course is a deep dive into the Seerah. It's not just walking the way, but actually looking at the footsteps. Seerah comes from the word Sara Yasiru, which means to move on a journey, to move from one place to another place. Everybody's moving through life. The Seerah was a moving journey, a 23-year journey that started in Mecca and finished in Medina. When you're walking, people are looking ahead. Yes, you can see the action, but when you're looking ahead, you're looking all around you as well, which is what the Seerah really is. You're looking all around you and you're missing the object of what you're supposed to be looking for, which is Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the reason this course is called Deeper Seerah is we are actually looking at the footsteps of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The one who clears a path through the jungle, the one who clears a path through the desert for you. He's got the sword and he's chopping down all the trees and the weeds and the branches so that he's clearing a path for you. If you're in the desert and you want to follow the signs of someone, you look at the footsteps. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has done all the hard work, so to speak. He's got rid of all the dangerous snakes, scorpions, tarantulas, the branches that were overhanging that would have poked your eyes have been cut. The way through the jungle has been made clear. You don't need to look anywhere else now. You just need to look at the footsteps of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and put your foot in each step. You're not going to go wrong. The path of Islam is a very narrow path. If you stray too much to the left, you're in badlands. Wild animals, shaitan, jinn, whatever you want to call it, they're waiting for you there. There are landmines. The path of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a narrow path and it's a straight path. You don't need to look left and right, because if you're looking left and right, you're being enticed by the intoxicants of this world. The idea of this seerah, the idea of the journey was to get from A to B. A is this world and B is Jannah. And you don't get Jannah by looking at the intoxicating things of this world, because they lure you away. This world is a bridge. Hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This world is a bridge. That bridge is that tight footsteps of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam which you're crossing. Who stops and sits on a bridge and starts looking over into the river? You look long enough at the river and you're going to fall in. You weren't here. When you're on a journey, you're not going to build a house on the bridge. You're not going to admire the scenery. When you're on a journeys are difficult. Journeys are very difficult. That's why there is reward. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would say that make dua when you're on a journey. It's one of the blessed times to make dua because there is hardship involved in a journey. You just want to get from A to B. You want to cross. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's done the homework for you. Just look at his footsteps and put your footsteps in his footsteps. That's the reason why it's called deeper seerah. We will study it in a more analytical level. We'll bring in the sciences of anthropology and sociology because we need them to answer certain questions, especially today, where we are far removed from the sociological landscape of 1,000 years ago. So we cannot juxtapose morality from today onto the past because it won't make sense. And this is why many people, when they study the seerah without a proper context and without understanding these sciences, they cannot answer those questions. They can either not answer those questions or they will make a mess of answering those questions, which is what's happening today with many of the answers that the ulama give that are in the seerah. There are perfectly natural, rational answers to everything in the seerah, but our ulama somehow bypass that and give you a religious answer. Oh, God wanted it. Yes, alhamdulillah. Yeah, mashallah, anta Muslim, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. But that's not the answer that the non-Muslim wanted to hear or the student of knowledge wanted to hear. Even the student of knowledge knows Allah willed it. But what's the human understanding behind it? And there is always a human understanding behind it. So that's what we're going to look at. The stories in the Quran, they're not mere stories, but they're deep. There's ibrah, there's lessons to be had in the stories. The Quran you can break it into two. It's commands and prohibitions, and the rest of it is stories. That is what the Quran is. The story of Yusuf alayhi salam consists of a whole surah. Musa alayhi salam mentioned the most in the Quran. Isa alayhi salam, a whole story mentioned after his mother Maryam salamullah alayha. Right? They're all stories. Stories are for what? Either for relaxation or for lessons. The Quran wasn't a book for relaxing with. It was a book that would get you up. Yeah. What's the second surah or the third surah revealed? Surah Mudaththir and Muzammil. Oh, you who is wrapped up, get up, arise and purify yourself and warn. It's a time for action. The Quran is a book of action. It's not a book of fairy tales. Yes, some of those stories can be read as good stories, but there are deep meanings and lessons, and we bypass those lessons at our own detriment. The Quran is the most magnificent book in the world, and we treat it as a storybook. We will look for all of our problems in other books, but we will not look for our problems in the Quran. And I guarantee you, if you only had the Quran and you looked or were taught the Quran properly, every answer to every problem you have in your life you'd find in the Quran. But sadly, we don't look at the Quran like that. Hopefully these lessons will awaken us to this, inshallah. The seerah is no different. The seerah requires analysis. My own teacher, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to have a very old teacher. He's been with me for 20 years and he's always there for me. I can ask him whatever I want. I'm his best student and I'm allowed to ask those questions freely. He said to me, the seerah is such a deep subject, it's taught right at the end of our study program in Dars-e-Nizami. Most places study it in the beginning because for them it's a light and easy subject. But you'll realize why the seerah is not a light and easy subject. If you take it as a fairy tale, then it is a light and easy subject. If you take the Quranic stories as feel-good stories, then yes, they're light. But if you take them for the real reasons they were written, it's not a light subject. So we'll have a quick brief look at what is seerah. We're not going to go too deep because we're going to mention this again when we do the introductory chapters of what the seerah is. This is the science of seerah. So seerah comes from the word sara yasiru seerah. It's a way someone travels. the way a life is spent. Because when you spend a life, it's a traveled life, right? Me sitting here, spending a life as an invalid, a disabled person, or a handicapped person, I'm still traveling my life. I'm still spending my life, right? So it's a way a life is spent. So you could technically use the word, Allah's used it in the Quran. I didn't write the quote here, but Allah's used the word Seerah in the Quran to mean a journey, a movement. So before it was used for everybody's biography. You know, the biography of anybody, they would say, tell us the seerah of so and so. But over time, it became exclusively for Rasul. Today, when we say seerah, everybody will know we're talking about Rasul, not even the seerah of another prophet, until you have to mention, tell me the seerah of Musa. So it's exclusively referred to the biography of Rasul. And it's very interesting because Arabic is the Semitic languages is a triliteral root language. So you have, the three base letters. We all know this from Arabic grammar, fa'ala, daraba, right? And then you can morph those letters, morphology, the science of sarf, into many, many other letters. And the closely related the letters, the deeper the understandings you get. So Sara with the Sad means to become something, to achieve something, or to reach a goal. So Sara with the Sin is to travel. Sara with the Sad has a similar meaning. So you're traveling for what? If you're on a journey, either you're a donkey that's tied to a wheel and that's going round and round and round and round and grinding the corn, and it's traveled 1,000 miles in a day, in a week, but it's got nowhere. Where it started is where it finished. So we're human beings. Every journey is a meaningful journey. When you speak, there's purpose, there's meaning. When you think, there's purpose, there's meaning. When you move, there's purpose, there's meaning. Every religion teaches this. So you're going from A to B. You're never going to make a journey that's a pointless journey that doesn't serve a purpose. So you're on a journey, on a life journey from Allah to Allah, right? So Sara with the Sad is to achieve the end of that journey, to reach your goal, right? Masir comes from there, your objective. And I think it's sabara here. I didn't look at the Arabic, so I don't know what the root word would be, but I'm guessing it's sabara. With a fatha is to become happy or to make happy. Surur, masrur, we know this word from Arabic. You are happy, right? Masrur is someone who displays happiness, is a happy person. Again, if you're on a journey that's successful, would you not be happy? What do they say? Other religions say it's not the end of the journey, but it's the actual doing the journey itself. That is the main goal. That's the main purpose. For us as Muslims, there is always an end goal. So the journey has to be done the right way as well. When you set off on a journey, you have an instruction manual. If you're not prepared, you're going to fail on your journey. We come prepared. And all of this, what we're doing now, is preparing ourselves for this journey. With a kasra, it means sir, which means a secret. The secret of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, except for Allah, nobody knows. The soul of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is so large, is so metaphorically large that it's not enough for this universe to contain. It's bigger than this universe. The actual secret of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you will not even touch upon in the Seerah. You will not even touch upon it in the Seerah. There are other books for that, and we'll mention those. And you want to penetrate that secret and become part of that secret. So you see how Sara Yasiru, Seerah, just doesn't mean a journey anymore. It's much more. And if you're not achieving all of these stages, then what kind of a journey are you on? Are you just skim reading? Are you skimming through? Are you running, looking around? If you're running, looking around aimlessly, you're not looking on the floor, you're going to trip over something. Sadly, many people do. With a Dhamma, Surra means your navel. Your navel in all cultures means the seat of everything. The umbilical cord that connects the child to the mother is in this area. We have a saying, the navel of the earth. The Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the navel of the earth. He is the connection between you and everything in creation, because we have the hadith of Rasulullah that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have created all of this. Whether it's weak or not, that's in its own place. But it's the deeper meanings that we are getting from this. Rasulullah is the navel and seat of all creation. So just from the word Sara, Sin Alif Ra, and its morphology, you see what we've just derived from here now? This is sacred knowledge. This is giving the haqq of the sciences that you are supposed to be studying. So, Seerah is not to be confused with Sunnah and Hadith. Many people have a problem because they will say you cannot just dismiss a story in the Seerah because it has a Hadith base, or it's a Hadith, or it's from the Islamic sciences, such as that if you refuse them, then you are creating a great blunder. People do not understand this. So I'm just going to clarify this. Is everybody still with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. I hope you're not bored.
No. No.
Right. So Sunnah, Hadith, and Seerah are three different subjects. They have a linkage, as we'll see, but they're treated as three separate subjects. So Sunnah comes from, a Sunnah is like a well-trodden path. A well-trodden path, another way of looking at it is law. Sunnah is another meaning is law. We say the Sunnah of so-and-so, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, the Sunnah of Allah. For example, what's Allah in theology? We learn what's Allah's Sunnah in creation, right? Sometimes just by studying theology, you know that if something happens in creation, you're like, you know what? I don't think this happened because it's not Allah's Sunnah in creation. We don't see Allah working like this. We can see Allah's Sunnah in creation. So it's a way, and obviously Sharia, which is all of it is taken from Hadith and Quran and Sunnah, right? Sunnah, obviously, the tacit actions, approvals, and all of Rasulullah. Sharia means a way to water. Water is the source of all life, right? If I said Sharia means a way to a dry well, I mean, what's so spectacular about that? Why are you leading me to a dry well? Sharia is a way to water. Water is the source of all life. Water is what energizes you. Where you have water, you have everything. So this is how we look at Sunnah, Hadith of Rasulullah. He who introduces some good practice in Islam, which was followed after him, the Arabic here, you'll see the word Sunnah. He would be assured of reward like one who followed it, without their reward being diminished in any respect. And he who introduces some evil practice in Islam, which had been followed subsequently by others, he would be required to bear the burden like that of one who followed this evil practice without theirs being diminished in any respect. The Arabic of this has the word Sunnah. And if I'm not mistaken, this hadith is by somebody called Jabbar ibn Bajali in Muslim Sharif, it's mentioned. And this is a strong hadith that we use against those people that say everything that you innovate is bid'ah, right? This is a hadith that we use against them and say, look, Rasulullah is saying if you introduce a good practice into Islam, right? And then obviously the evil practice would be the bid'ah. But that's not our topic here, but this is something that you can look at if you want to study the subject of bid'ah. So let's have a quick look at Sunnah. Sunnah, the fuqaha use it. They use the word Sunnah, right, in this way. So for example, the fuqaha, everything is in divided into 5 rulings. If you're a Hanafi, it will be more than that. But generally, we all get the gist. We all tulabul ilm here, so we know what we're talking about. You have the fard, you have the mustahab, you have the mubah, you have the makruh and the haram. The sunnah would be the mustahab, right? So this is how the fuqaha use this word. And then the usuliyin, the ones who are interested in jurisprudence, they use sunnah to mean hadith, because there's two sources where they derive law from. They derive law from the Quran, and they derive law from the hadith of Rasulullah. And they combine that together, and then they formulate their own usul. So we have the 4 schools, as we're we're familiar with. So when they're talking about hadith, they actually use the word sunnah here. So now we know sunnah is different, hadith is different. We are concerned with seerah, but let's have a look at the word hadith. Why we're having a look at the word hadith? Because the hadith, a lot of the hadith are used in seerah, and some are authentic, some are not authentic, some are, even the non-authentic ones are used there to add weight and bolster your story. You know, if you need to create some love or something there, it's there. And akhbar, in essence, are also hadith, and they're also reports that are not hadith. So, for example, a hadith, what does hadith mean? Right? News. It's a report, it's a message, or it's speech. Right? In the case of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, hadith is what? It's a saying of his, an action of his, an approval of his, a tacit approval. So if he saw you do something and he didn't object, that is now become a hadith that you can follow. And a description. And Allah says in the Quran, هَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ مُوسَى? Has there reached you the story of Musa alayhi salam? So this is a word used in the Quran as well. The best of speech is the book of Allah, right? فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الْحَدِيثِ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ. So now comes the bit where I want everybody to give their input before we'll have a look at it a bit more deeper. So why do we study Seerah? We study Seerah for its historical context, correct? We study Seerah. Can someone give me an example of its historical context? Can someone tell me? Anybody? Should I start naming names? Are we still there, everybody?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, okay, cool. I'll do some more speaking then. I like hearing my own voice anyway. Right, so understanding the historical context. So for example, so these are just some reasons. Now, these reasons are going to look fair, fair and square, and you're going to say, aha, yes, 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 understandable, yep, everything is good, yep, okay. But then where does the love part start? That's what we look at afterwards. So for example, understanding historical context. We study Seerah to understand things in their historical context. An example would be learning about the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, helps us understand the political and social dynamics of early Islam, illustrating how strategic compromises can lead to long-term gains. Maybe today, the art of war is played out a bit differently. So we need to understand the art of war as it was back then. We have the role model, the part of the Seerah has the Prophet ﷺ, he's a role model for behavior. So, for example, the Prophet's patience and perseverance during the early years of persecution in Mecca demonstrate his resilience and endurance in facing challenges. We have insight into Islamic principles. Example would be the Prophet's emphasis on honesty and integrity, as seen in the story of the honest merchant. This is when he was chosen by Khadija al-Kubra, salamun alayha, before his Nabuwa. It reinforces the value of ethical business practice. We have guidance on leadership. The Prophet's management of the Medinan community, including the Constitution of Medina, exemplifies inclusive and just leadership. We have foundation for Islamic law. The Prophet's actions and decisions during the incident of Ifak, this was the slander of Aisha, salamun alayha, provides guidance on handling accusations and implementing justice. We have the illustration of compassion and mercy. The story of the Prophet's interaction with the Bedouin who urinated in the mosque shows his compassionate and understanding approach to addressing mistakes. Who knows this story, by the way? Who knows this story about the Bedouin that urinated in the mosque?
I think so.
Right. There was another story as well. Sorry?
I've heard of this before. So.
Yeah. So you see how Rasulullah managed it in such a beautiful way. He just told everybody, let him finish. Don't beat him. Don't stop him. Let him finish. And once he's finished, he said to the companions, get a bucket of water and throw it over the urine. And it was sand. Don't forget, it was sand over there. And then obviously he would have had a word with the Bedouin and said, oh, so-and-so, this is not how we do these things here. You know, I know that you're a simple person and in the desert things are done different, but the masjid isn't a place that you do this. And then there was the man who spat and phlegm. You know, when you do those nasty kind of spits, and he spat on the mimbar of Rasulullah, and Rasulullah cleaned it with his blessed hands. He didn't get mad or angry. So who would do that today? If somebody did this in our mosque, oh my God, they would beat him black and blue. Right? So then you have to ask yourself, why did you study the Seerah if you weren't going to put it into practice? Encouragement of personal development. The Prophet's commitment to personal growth and education, including his encouragement of reading and learning, highlights his importance of self-improvement. Strengthening faith. Example, the miracle of Isra al-Mi'raj serves to reinforce the faith of believers through his spiritual miraculous aspects. Some people left Islam at this juncture, but the miracle of it and the fact that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq believed it, even from a non-Muslim, right? He says, I heard something greater than this. Wahi comes from him from the seventh heaven. Wahi comes to him, and that's a greater miracle than this small journey you're talking about, right? So it strengthens faith, understands interfaith relations. All of the Seerah actually would strengthen faith, but these are just examples. The Prophet's treaties and interactions with non-Muslim communities such as the Christians of Najran provide insights into respectful and constructive interfaith dialogue. Promoting social justice. The Prophet's efforts to uplift the status of women and the poor, such as his advocacy for women's rights and the fair treatment of slaves, exemplify the importance of social justice and equality. The list is actually endless, and I'm deliberately going to bore you, right? So to know and forge a relationship with Rasulullah is important to understand his character and teachings deeply and apply them in one's life. So I decided to add some more. And you'll find out why in a while. Following his sunnah and traditions. So now we're going to look at a more intimate level. Observing the Prophet's practice of regular prayers and sunnah prayers, such as a sunnah fajr witr, shows adherence to his traditions. Numerous hadiths emphasize this, such as the hadith where he says, "Pray as you have seen me pray." Studying his character and biography, reading about his kindness, such as the way he forgave those who had wronged him, helps emulating his character. The Prophet's forgiveness of the people of Ta'if after they rejected him and treated him harshly demonstrates his patience and mercy. This was the most difficult time in his life. Inshallah, we will touch on this. It's a very emotional moment. Observing his teachings on compassion and justice, implementing his teachings on treating others with respect and fairness as seen in his interactions with his family and companions. The proof, the merciful are shown mercy by the merciful are shown mercy by the merciful. Be merciful on the earth and you will be shown mercy from above. Engaging in regular salawat, sending praise upon him, reciting salawat, prayers for peace and blessings upon Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. The Prophet said, whoever sends blessings upon me once, Allah would send blessings upon him tenfold. Emulating his ethical conduct, striving to adopt his honesty and integrity in daily life, as demonstrated by his reputation as Al-Amin, even before prophethood. The best of people are those who are most beneficial to others. Following his guidance in personal and social matters, applying his teachings on managing personal and family affairs, such as his guidance on marriage and relationships, the Prophet's advice on treating spouses with kindness in reflection. In the hadith, the best of you are those who are best to their wives. Seeking forgiveness and repentance, regularly seeking forgiveness from Allah, following the Prophet's practice of making istighfar. By Allah, I ask forgiveness of Allah and turn to Him in repentance more than 70 times a day. Participating in acts of charity and good deeds. Engaging in charitable acts and helping those in need, as the Prophet emphasized generosity and charity. The hadith is, charity does not decrease wealth. No one forgives another, but Allah increases his honor. No one humbles himself for the sake of Allah, but that Allah raises his status. Respecting his sunnah in his rituals, example, performing Hajj and Umrah according to the way of the Prophet did, following his specific rituals and practices. Take your rights of Hajj from me. Developing a spiritual connections through prayer and supplication, making supplications dua with the intention of drawing closer to Allah and by extension honoring the Prophet's legacy. The Prophet's practice of making long and heartfelt prayers, as in his night prayers, sets an example of personal connection. So these actions supported by authentic proof. So all of these things are in the Seerah. They are hadiths, but the Seerah gives us context to these. Right? His life exemplified the ideal relationship with goodness, virtue, offering valuable lessons for us. But when we study hadith on their own, it's abstract. Where does this hadith fit in? Why was this hadith said? Why was this lesson given? The Seerah's role is actually this. And also for the Quran. So the greatest benefit for the Seerah, more than love, the greatest benefit for the Seerah would be the actual contextual basis for the Quran and the Seerah. That's the greatest gift that the Seerah gives us. Just going to give you some more examples on wavering honesty. Before his prophethood, the prophet was known as Al-Amin. This teaches us the importance of maintaining integrity and truthfulness in all aspects of life. Forgiveness and compassion. He forgave everybody when he entered Mecca. This day there is no blame upon you. Which other general, warlord, commander, king, Amir, Sultan, anybody has done that before? Emperor. Patience in adversity. During the boycott of Banu Hashim clan, the Prophet endured immense hardship with patience and perseverance. Generosity. The Prophet was known for his extreme generosity, often giving away his possessions and wealth to those in need, as shown in the hadith where he said, the best of people are those who are most beneficial to others. Justice and fairness. The Prophet establishing the constitution of Medinan, which laid out principles of justice, equality amongst various communities. His humility and modesty. Despite his status as a prophet, he lived a life of humility, sharing in the hardships of his people. Respect for others' rights. The Prophet respected the rights of women and emphasized their dignified treatment, such as his teachings on mutual respect and kindness. Commitment to truth. Throughout his life, the Prophet adhered strictly to the truth, even when it was against his personal or social interests, such as when he criticized the injustices of his society. Empathy and understanding. The Prophet showed deep empathy and understanding towards his companions and followers, providing support and comfort in times of distress. So, half of that exercise was boring, and I know it was, and I'm glad it was. Why? Because that was deliberately done for two reasons. The first thing is that the next thing you see will be interesting now, and this was an exercise to challenge you that had I asked you, give me one example of any of those things. So we highlighted, and I could have made a list of 100 or over 100 possibly different attributes of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and given an example from them. And I actually wanted to do it, and I think I will do it. When we teach the Seerah, just as an exercise for myself and for you, I will do it. It will amaze you and surprise you. And you should ask yourself the question, how well do you know Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Had someone asked you, give me an example of any one of those things, would you have been able to give an example of any one of those things? If not, then you're lacking. If yes, even if you could give one example, well done to you. The Prophets consistently express gratitude to Allah. Okay, right. So, why study Seerah? Unfortunately, Seerah no longer has the importance it once did. When we study the first subject, the first lecture on Seerah, we'll find out the importance of Seerah and how the companions studied it, how it was studied in the house of the Ahlul Bayt, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's house. The same importance was given to Seerah that was given to the Quran. The Quran is a lifelong journey. It's a recitation, it's translation, it's memorization, it's tafsir. It doesn't end. The journey is qira'ah. It doesn't end. It's tajweed. That's how they treated the Seerah. And today the Seerah is one book on our shelves that we never read. And the Seerah is a paradigm on which sits many other subjects. It's not even the subject by itself. The Seerah is just a framework, actually. It's just a framework. And in the Madaris, am I right in saying that none of you really studied Seerah properly in the Madaris, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So people think studying the Quran, the Hadith, and Fiqh are more important. You come away from your madrasa system thinking it's more important to study the Quran, Hadith, and Fiqh. And actually, if you really look at it, the strongest you'd be on any subject would probably be Fiqh. your knowledge, your deep knowledge of a hadith, the details would not be there until you specialize. And certainly the Quran, the ulum al-Quran are very, very difficult. You'd probably just have a surface level engagement with Quran as well. And Asul you'd have a surface level engagement with as well. Seerah would just be like a story. It's just, okay, boys, right? Now we're going to study Seerah, boys and girls. We're going to study Seerah. Okay, it's a 3-month course. We're going to look at, the first lesson, the second lesson, the third lesson, and can you see how your Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sacrificed for you? Can you see the deep pain he felt? Can you see how this happened? And you're like, yep, this is a nice story. This is an emotional story. This is a good story. You're going to cry, you're going to feel something, and then you're going to go away, and then you're going to forget it. Right? And what lessons did you draw from it? Did you ever think once that when something happened in your life that you reverted back to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam acting in a particular manner, and then you act in that manner? You'd probably actually remember a hadith at that point, but not a story from the seerah. That's a huge tragedy. That's a what can I say, man? What can I say? True lovers of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as we learn, seerah is everything for them. They become fana, they become annihilated in the seerah. Seerah actually is the icing on the cake for madrasa students. In madrasa curriculums, it's the icing on the cake. And for what I'm going to impart to you today, it's the reverse of the icing, in the sense that it's the icing, but it's the bedrock. The seerah is actually the bedrock. The main game isn't the seerah. The main game is something else that I'm going to point to you today, but you need a base of seerah, right? So we're going to do something special with the seerah, and then we're going to build upon that, inshallah. So the importance of understanding seerah, 3 things happen in madrasas and outside of madrasas. Either people take it as a fairy tale. This is a nice story, man. Wow, look at this. This marriage happened. This war happened. This amazing event happened. This companion became Muslim. This one died like this. It's a nice fairy tale. Or it becomes a boring historical exercise, because you have to learn names, you have to learn genealogies, you have to learn who did what, when, why. And history is actually a boring subject for many people. Or it's heartwarming snippets. People are going to say that the Islam of Umar was like this, and when he went and to the house of Rasulullah, grabbed him, and everybody said Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and that's a very emotional moment. Right? Everybody would cry at that point. Umar became Muslim, Umar became Muslim, or when something else happened to Rasulullah. That's what it becomes. But what about the greater lessons, the greater meanings? Right? The implications of the fact that Rasulullah made dua, oh Allah, give me Umar or give me Abu Jahl. For reasons known only to Allah, Allah chose Umar to become a Muslim and not Abu Jahl. And where is Abu Jahl now? Did anybody even think? He had a connection to Rasulullah. Then his name came out in a dua from the lips of Rasulullah. A heartfelt dua based on love. And the name of Umar, who was a non-Muslim at the time, came out of the blessed lips of Rasulullah in a heartfelt, emotive action of love. Sadly, that love didn't get Abu Jahl nowhere. He had a connection with love in a beautiful prayer at one time, oh Abu Jahl, but look where it took you. Where are you now? Where are you now? And Umar, Allahu Akbar. Where is Umar today and Umar's name today? And both names came out together. See, nobody teaches you this detail. It's just a heartwarming snippet. Yeah, Umar became Muslim and Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Darul Nadwa, everybody saying Allahu Akbar. Everybody come out of hiding. Umar then goes to the Kaaba. Umar goes to Abu Jahl and says to Abu Jahl, I became a Muslim. Aslamtu. And Abu Jahl slammed the door on his face, curses. And then Umar and Hamza went to the masjid and they're praying for the first time in public. And yeah, this is a nice heartwarming story. But look at the greater detail that I just explained to you. Abu Jahl, Rasulullah didn't mention me by name. Abu Jahl, you got mentioned by name. I don't know my end. I don't know my end, but I know your end. How could that happen? Why did you allow that to happen, Abu Jahl? You were mentioned. How lucky you are. The blessed lips mentioned your name. And you didn't gain benefit from that because you chose not to gain benefit. You know, these are the secrets. This is the sir. This is the heart. This is the soul. This is the nur. This is the ruh of Seerah. Some people cannot see the leaves from the branches. We don't want to look at just the leaves. We want to look at the veins on every single leaf. This is the beauty of Seerah. And this is just the Seerah, and this is the tip of the iceberg of what it means to form a connection with the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Like I told you, the Seerah isn't that book. It isn't that subject that people think. The purpose of the Seerah, it is to go from the understanding that Islam is true and then to discover how it is actually lived in 3D. You know, when you play those computer games, where they show you a 3D map and you can kind of know where you are on the map, like you play Fortnite. You know where you are on the map, you know where to go. And at all times, even when you're in the game, you know where you are on the map. The Seerah should be a 3D map for you. Every time you close your eyes, you should know where the house of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is, where Al-Kaaba is, where the house of Abu Bakr is, where Umar became Muslim, where Umar was walking when he was met by Arat ibn, who was it? I can't remember the companion. And where the house of his sister was, where he knocked on the door, where Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was praying and somebody put the intestines of a camel. Wallahi, this should be in your mind at all times. You close your eyes and you have a fortnight-like map it opens up in front of you. And you can pick points. You can see shining points as you see in games. Okay, why is that point shining? Okay, that's where this blessed moment happened. This is where one of his daughters, this action happened. This is where that action. If this is not what Seerah is giving you, then you've not learned nothing from Seerah. You haven't learned anything from Seerah. It's a 3D map, because on that 3D map, not only should you be having a bird's eye view, you should be walking Assassin's Creed. All of you have played the game Assassin's Creed. You can walk for miles in that game. They've made that 3D world beautiful. You're walking. You should have a 3D map of Mecca, of Medina. Everybody will have a slightly different map, but it's your map. You're walking in the streets. You can hear the sounds. You can smell. You can feel. You can hear the voices. You can hear the adhan. If you're not getting that, then what have you got? Because it's on that bedrock, it's on that framework, it's on that seerah that you are now placing hadith. You are now placing Quran. You know the reason for this Quranic revelation. It's in seerah. Without seerah, you will not know it. This hadith, which you're reading, an abstract hadith, any hadith you pick up is abstract. It's floating in space. There's nothing around it. Sometimes you won't get the meaning because there's nothing around it. It's an abstract hadith floating in space. But that hadith, if you've juxtaposed it on your Assassin's Creed or your Fortnite map, you know why that hadith happened, where it happened, how it happened, why it happened, and you can even see the faces of the companions when they're being told that hadith. If this is not happening to you, you have not touched seerah. If you read it as a fairy tale, it will remain a fairy tale. And fairy tales go. And fairy tales are for children. This is the most important story you're going to read, because above this story sits hadith and sits Quran. And Quran is the most important book for you. The hadith are the most important book for you. One is recited revelation, the other one is unrecited revelation. And you can only know it if you've got that 3D map in front of you. You're navigating your way. You're in Mecca. You know Mecca like the back of your hand. And you know the journeys which companion took a journey from Mecca to Medina, what happened on the way, the journey of Khalid ibn Walid on his own, in a few days he got there, the journey of Rasul's daughter, who she was frightened and she lost a child, the journey of Aisha when she was escorted on her own, where they stopped by the wells, the revelation that was revealed of tayammum because of the action that she did. All of this, when you close your eyes, by Allah, when you close your eyes, you should be seeing this. You should be seeing those footsteps of Aisha. You should imagine Aisha dressed in black, sitting there, a young girl, a petite girl, waiting. The camels have gone. You can see the signs of the dung. You can see the footsteps. You can see the hearths. You can see the ashes gone, finished. What does she do? Does she stay there? Does she walk alone in the desert and risk dying, or does she wait? But she also knows that she's so light that nobody realized in the hawda that she had gone. So maybe nobody will realize, and that's it. She's going to die in the desert. But then comes a young companion who recognizes her. And when he recognizes her, he utters those words. The meaning of this is a spot of bother I've got myself in. Yani, I am alone with the wife of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam now. What are people going to say? I can't leave her. I have to help her. But what are people going to say? And how he escorts her back. Every story should have a visual 3D representation in your head. And every year it doesn't change. What you imagine today learning the Seerah, in 20 years' time, it should be the same images. Right? And then Abdullah ibn Ubay, and then when they started making the accusations, you can imagine his face and how he was dressed in his opulent clothing and how he was mirthing and mocking some of the companions who also fell into the gossip, and then they got lashed. You know, the poet of Rasulullah, got lashed. You can imagine a companion tied to a post and being lashed with his repentant face. If you're not bringing the Seerah alive like this, then it's a fairy tale. And this course is not a fairy tale. If you read it with meaning, you infuse all of the sciences, sociology, anthropology, psychology, spirituality. If you infuse all of this, you give it a holistic framework for your Islam that you can pull anything you want and you have your answer there, because your seerah is the bedrock. When you see in great detail of what Rasulullah went through for us, and like I said, you will not learn that in the seerah. The seerah is only 10% of that. It's difficult for you not to cry. You know something? I pray to Allah internally before giving this class that, oh Allah, don't make me cry, because I've got one weakness. Very, very easily do I cry when I teach seerah. And I held myself back a few times. You probably heard it in my voice. And I asked Allah, oh Allah, please don't let this happen, because it takes away from, if I'm going to cry after everything I say, yeah, it's nice, but it takes away from the lesson for everybody else, right? And I've held it together, alhamdulillah. But this is a sign of habba, of ish, of love. And how did this happen? This came about by spending time with Rasulullah, by not looking at the action, but looking through the action. Spending time with the companions, not listening to the words of the companions, but understanding the meanings of the words of the companions. And this love, by the way, only came from the seerah. And that's, like I said, scratching the surface of what real love is, what we're going to look at in the next slides. As I said here, it helps in understanding the Quran. So it helps us to understand the Quran. Many people are baffled by the Quran. Many of the verses of the Quran don't make sense on their own. It's not an easy read. We tell people, sometimes I hesitate in giving someone the Quran in English. I actually even tell them, I said, listen, it's not a story like the Bible. Genesis in the beginning, and then Revelation. What's the last book of the Bible? I can't remember. You know, the devil's chained and everybody's in hell or heaven. Revelation, I think it is. It's not in the beginning and the end. This is not the Bible. This is a book that doesn't really, it has a beginning that's somewhere, and then the end that's somewhere, and in between the orders of the surahs have all been changed with the final changing that was ordered by Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? So it's very jarring. It's a very jarring read. You know, people who want to take something negative from there will take something negative. People who want to take something positive will. Somebody could read into the Quran and say, oh, your God is a very vengeful God like the Jewish God. All God talks about is, I will punish you, I will throw you in hell, I will do this to you, I will do that to you. This sounds like the Jewish God of anger and hate. Astaghfirullah, not hate, but of anger and vengeance. And our God, the Christians will say, is a God of mercy, a God of forgiveness, and turn the other cheek. So it's always best to give him the seerah as well and say, brother or sister, read the seerah as well, and then understand. And especially if the seerah has the Quranic verses in there as they were revealed. The Quran is a series of messages. Yeah, they came out slowly over 23 years in response to situations. Guidance was needed, Allah sent the guidance. Interpret the code. And to interpret every message, you need to know the code. The code is the key to unlock that message. And that code is what? Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And you get a better understanding by looking at the context of how Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam acted in that situation. The values of Islam are visibly seen in the seerah, and the hadiths are no longer abstract, as I mentioned. Example, how he reacted in all situations. Sometimes we don't know. We read a hadith and we find it strange what Rasulullah did. Had we known it from the seerah, we'd know where and how and why. How he gave da'wah properly. How many people give da'wah in the wrong way? They create a bigger problem by giving da'wah they don't answer correctly, or they answer in an aggressive way, or they answer to get one over them, or they answer to mock them, or they answer to belittle them, or they answer to totally destroy their argument. How did Rasulullah do his da'wah? The seerah tells us this. For example, in da'wah, to be technical and when to be simple. Rasulullah was technical with people who understood technical stuff, and he was easy with people who needed that kind of da'wah. Today, we like to give the kalam cosmological argument to everybody. You know, I was giving da'wah in Saudi Arabia once to Filipinos, and I tried the same approach, what I was used to doing in England. He said, listen, I don't need to know all of this. He goes, for me, as a Filipino Christian, if I see you as a good Muslim, as a good human being, that's enough for me. I want to follow your religion. Alhamdulillah, that day we took so many shahada. Just because we said, oh, this is so easy. But had we known their personalities by reading the seerah and seeing what kind of personalities Rasulullah gave, what kind of da'wah, I would have known this from before and given the right da'wah. And there was a chance I could have lost that opportunity. But alhamdulillah, I didn't. But there was a chance that I could have, because I didn't know the seerah then. Not to be harsh, we know this. And hadith is basically a set of rules, and its application can be seen in the seerah. The Prophet was a leader, a husband, a brother, a father, a neighbor, a tradesman, a da'i. All of it is in the seerah, but that's not where you learn all these things. Like, this is what we're going to get to, inshallah. The hadith on its own can mislead, and sadly, many abuse the hadith, right? The hadith that the Quranic ayah, men are qawwamun ala nisa, right? The hadith that where Rasulullah said that women are deficient. I have the answer to that hadith. I'm not going to go into it now, but no way does it imply that the women are deficient. It was a contextual joke that Rasulullah was playing with them. He was having banter with them, because the husbands had given money and everything and gone to fight. And he says that you're left behind, you're deficient. They've taken the reward. What have you done? And then all the women started taking their gold off and putting it, and a pile of gold appeared in front of Rasulullah, and he was happy. But nobody tells you that. Men like to use the hadith and say, women, you are deficient. Right? Reading the seerah properly and understanding it will teach you properly the context of these hadiths, so we don't misuse these hadiths. But as I said, the Quran wasn't revealed in one go. It was revealed piecemeal, and that makes for seerah. All Muslim history was written because of seerah. Pre-Islamic history And after was all written because of Seerah, because people got into the habit of writing because they wanted to write the hadith of Rasulullah. They wanted to write the Seerah of Rasulullah. Even pre-Islamic history, which is a very precious record, was compiled due to Seerah. And Muslims had to learn how to navigate the preservation of the Seerah, which is what we're going to look at in the next lesson. Ballighu anni walau ayah. Rasulullah said, the full hadith is longer than this, convey from me, even if it's an ayah, right? And that is what the Seerah, that is khabar, that is a hadith, that is an action. Anything you see Rasulullah do, convey it, but convey it truthfully. That means give the deeper meaning behind it, give the spirituality behind it. Don't just give it as, like how people say, oh, you can divorce your wife, it's okay, you can marry 4 times. Who told you? If you could marry 4 times, why did Rasulullah not take one wife from Medina? There's a reason for this. We look at it when we get there. Yeah. And what are the actual rules of marriage? It's not so easy that people say, yes, it's easy to marry 2, 3, and 4. Right? It takes a serious course of study of hadith, of the spirit of hadith, of Seerah to understand this. Right now, so as I said, Seerah isn't enough. So we study the Seerah and cry a little, and then what? What should we do? How to instill a deeper and more meaningful connection in our life? Let's take the following examples. I'm going to give you an example of human beings now, right? So we love certain things. We love hobbies. We love things. We love actors. We love celebrities. We love footballers. And we love other human beings, i.e. girls love boys, boys love girls in a halal way, marriage, of course. Our love makes us replicate everything of those, the object of our love in all aspects of their lives. So, for example, if I love a Hollywood actor, some people are crazy. They're fanboys. They cut their hairstyle like them. They dress like them. They use the idiomatic speech. They talk like them, right? They walk like them. They want to be like them. They train like them. They even learn what they eat and what they don't eat. Likewise, when you love a girl or a girl loves the guy, the first meeting you have, you mimic each other's expressions. You will love to use her expressions, his expressions. You will love a certain drink. If you sat down for the first time to have orange juice, you didn't like it, she liked it. After that, by God, you will start liking it. That's muhabba, that's ishq, that's love. Do we have that for Rasulullah? Do we replicate him in most things? Hardly. Do we eat the things he ate, drink the drinks he did, refrain from what he refrained, sit where he sat, walk how he walked? Do we even know these things? No. And you know why? You're not going to get this in Seerah. This is where I said Seerah is not enough. So where do we get this from? Let's take a look. Will the Seerah alone allow this to happen? What's missing? Well, we have 3 signs of love. Basically there's 3 Islamic objectives here when it comes to Rasulullah and love. Number 1, ma'rifah. Number 2, muhabba and ittaba, right? So you must know the Prophet to love him and then to follow him. If you don't know him, you won't love him and you certainly won't follow him. Right? And if you don't love him, you're not even a Muslim. So it needs to be done in stages. The Seerah will not give you the knowledge that I know him. What you will know is battles and companions and migrations and persecution and the names of the kuffar. Those are the things that you will learn in Seerah, a lot of. But to really know somebody is another science. And only from knowing can you love, and from love you blindly follow. How much do we know to love and then to follow? Hadith by Rasulullah, I'm going to give you, I should have given you 3 proofs, but I'll give you 2 here. None of you will have faith till he loves me more than his father, his children, and all mankind. This is a condition. This is a condition. You don't have faith. You don't have faith until you love him more than everybody else. We have to ask ourselves, our faith is deficient. Do we love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam more than we love us? Do we love him as he should be loved? No. No. We can never say we love him more than as he should be loved. Why? Because we don't know him. We only love him up to the point we know him. That's it. And we know him very little. So you don't have complete faith. And on the day of judgment, in your grave, when you ask the question, tell me about this person. You know, there's two ways of saying this, right? Ma nabiyuk, right? Or what did you used to say about this person? Even a non-Muslim can say my prophet is the prophet of the time is Muhammad. Of course, at that point, even the non-Muslim will know this. But if it was so easy, you know, that answer would have sufficed. But it doesn't suffice for a non-Muslim to say Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I know it's Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A Muslim will say I know it's Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But really, the angels are looking for something deeper. Tell me what you knew about this person. Who is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa ashabihi wasallam? Who is he? What answer will you give? You know a Bollywood actor or actress or singer or celebrity more than you know Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know the relationship of all of the actors and actresses, the singers, their food habits, their drug habits, when they're sick, when they're well, their fashion sense. But how? Name me the wives of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell me when his daughters died. Tell me their names. Tell me about his sufferings. We don't know. So with what confidence do you think you're going to be in your grave answering the question, yes, I know about this person? This is the same thing mentioned here. Will you be able to answer the question? This is the same thing mentioned here. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, O Prophet, if you sincerely love Allah, then follow me. Allah will love you and forgive your sins, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. Now there's a condition here. There's a condition. Your iman isn't complete until you completely love the Prophet. And how to love the Prophet we'll touch upon in the real seerah, inshallah. The hadith of Umar. And now Allah is saying, O Prophet, if you sincerely love Allah, then follow the Prophet. How can we follow the Prophet completely like we follow who we love when we don't know the Prophet, to love the Prophet, to then follow the Prophet? And if we're not doing that, Allah will not love us and Allah will not forgive our sins. You see the quagmire, the quandary, the problem we're in here now. And then when you go to the mosques, and then you see the name of Allah on one side and the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the other side, there are schools in Islam, more than one school, that have a problem with that. They will say, why did you write the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam next to the name of Allah in the mihrab? Well, Habibi, I'm just looking at this Quranic ayah. Allah put his own name next to the name of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and if you separate that name, you become kafir, as in your kalima shahada. So if Allah put the name together, what's your problem if I'm putting the name together? I'm in a quagmire, I'm in a quandary here. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling me that I don't have iman until I love him. And I don't know him to love him. And on the other side, Allah is saying, if you love me, if you sincerely love Allah, then follow Rasul. I don't know him, so I don't love the Prophet. That's a proof now. It's been proven. And I don't love Allah. And what Allah said? Allah says He's not going to forgive me and He's not going to love me. I'm in serious trouble. I'm in serious trouble. What about my theology? What about my fiqh? What about all those sciences? What about all those subjects? Where did they go now? I don't have a basic relationship. As I mentioned before, the only idea in creation is the essence of Allah Azza wa Jal. That's it. Allah wa la shay ba'd. Nothing after. Allah, and that's it. And the key, the only thing that Allah wanted me to love from His creation the most, there's only one thing, and that's Rasulullah. So there's Allah who loves the Prophet and wants me to love the Prophet because he loves the Prophet and he's ordered me. And then there's the Rasul who loves Allah more than everybody. And if I claim true love for the Rasul, then I should love Allah. But my love for Allah is not sincere. My love for Rasul is not sincere. I am a hypocrite. This is why the companions, one of the companions, when he came, he said, Ya Rasul, when we sit with you, we feel like this is it, man. We are there. We are there. But when we go away, we feel like hypocrites. One of the companions even said, he goes, I'm a hypocrite. He goes, when I'm in the Prophet, I'm everything. But when I walk away, I get back into dunya and I'm a hypocrite. We claim love, and love has conditions. Somebody asked a very beautiful girl, he loves you very much. She said, they all love me. What did he do for me to prove his love? Saying I love you is empty words. You want to know what real love is? Read the stories of the Anbiya, of the Awliya. The secrets, the sir that I mentioned, the secrets, and you'll find out what love is. And that's a whole nother ball game. Wallahi, that's a whole nother ball game. The author of the book Ad-Dalalul Khairat, which is the most celebrated salawat upon Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the whole world, read from the east and the west. Everybody knows this book. He died of a broken heart. He died of a broken heart in love for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In love for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And if I'm not mistaken, it was him whose father, he isolated himself into his room. And his father said, look, man, something's wrong with your son. What's wrong with him? He just doesn't come out. He's locked away. His father went inside and he saw in the room written everywhere, death, 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 death. His father understood and he came down and said, leave my son. He's on another level. Leave my son. That's love. When you cannot see your lover, you die of a broken heart. Can we measure that? People are confused. People think loving is enough without action. As I just said, there's no love without action. Love forces you to be something, to do something. Or you think, we think we know without action. It's like people who say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to pray. I'm just going to make dua. Allah knows my intentions. What are you talking about? The one who knows your intentions ordered you. If the king asks you for a cup of coffee and you bring him tea, you bought him tea thinking he wants tea, but he asked you for coffee. He's going to say, off with your head. And worse, if he asks for tea, for coffee, and you bring him cornflakes thinking, oh, it's breakfast. He never asked for cornflakes. That's even more worse. You're just satisfying yourself. Give the king what the king asked. It's love forces you to talk about the object of your beloved, and it forces you into action. How many a group claim love, but there's no action? How many a group claim love and is only empty talk? There are groups in Islam that are willing to do anything for the name of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But when you look at their action, there is zero action there. Will Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam claim them as his own tomorrow? Will Allah say, I love you because you love Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? What are the signs of love? I didn't see the signs of love. The signs of love would have forced you to do something. A mother will sacrifice her life for her children. That's a sign of love. What did you do? You couldn't even get up at the tahajjud. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prayed tahajjud and you couldn't even get up, and you're saying you love him? Empty words. And like I said, it all comes from a lack of knowing him. Those people who claim extreme love, they don't know their messenger. Again, is Seerah enough? Sadly, no. Love creates following. Ask a lover why he or she copies things from the object of the beloved. I'm crazy about him or her, she will say, he will say. I can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't think of nothing. All you're thinking about is your beloved. Your days, you're floating on the air, and when you land, you're bouncing, you have a stride in your bounce. This is, when people are newly in love, this is what they feel. They have a stupid smile on their face. Only they know what they're thinking. Do you have that kind of a love for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? You know, Mawlid gatherings. This is one of the reasons of Mawlid, by the way. That for the contention of Mawlid, should we do it or not? There's a whole science of why people do Mawlid. And that's a topic for another session, inshallah. But why, people will ask, why do you love him or her? Why do you love? Right? And they will answer, love is a part of how much I know him or her. He knows something about her. He's seen something. He knows something in detail that you don't know that's made him love her. If you want to learn about love, ask Majnoon. He was coming from somewhere once and they said, oh Majnoon, where are you coming from? He said, from Layla. And he was walking in the other direction. They said, where are you going? He said, to Layla. Ya Habibi, you're coming this way and you're going that way and you came from Layla and you're going to Layla. That's love, because that's all he ever saw. Layla had died, had become dust, had been buried for years. But for him, Layla was still alive. He was still living and breathing and seeing Layla. He would go to her village. He would kiss the walls. And in his poetry, he says, I don't kiss the walls because they are walls. He goes, but these are the walls that held Layla. He saw the dog. And he would feed the dog and massage the dog. And they said, why are you doing this? He said, because these eyes of this dog fell on Layla. That's muhabba. That's muhabba. We love the companions because they were the companions. But we just described above, our love is deficient, our love is hypocritical. You want to learn about love, go and study Majnoon. Follow Majnoon and make the object. Majnoon's object was Layla. Make your object Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We've never met the Prophet, yet only after we know him does real love take place. But there are lovers in this world that they've never met him. This is the miracle and the mercy of what Allah's given us. This is the miracle of Nubuwwah, that we are so removed. We don't know the Seerah, we don't know Hadith, we don't know Quran, we don't know anything, yet we have a form of love. We have a real form of love as well, by the way. And we have that so far removed. This is a miracle, and it's this seed that we want to blossom into a beautiful flower, into a beautiful sunflower that faces the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a sunflower moves with the sun. That's why it's called a sunflower. Most flowers move with the sun. They are, you've heard the term sun worshippers, right? It's the wrong term to use, but they're sun followers. They follow the sun, right? Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is your son. He is everything for you. He is your son. If you have real love, your heart will open and will follow him. Love creates a following of the object, which is then obeying and ordering him, even though we've never met him. So our trajectory is what? What do we take away from here? To know him, to love him, and then to follow him. Okay, we get the idea. Ustaz, we get the idea. We've heard enough. 3 hours. What next? What now? Well, my dear students, first things first. There's much more where this came from. What's the first thing we need to focus on to know the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I'm going to ask a question and I need an answer from the class now. What's the very first thing we need to do if we are to foster love and engender love for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Can someone tell me?
Is it the Shama'il?
Sorry, who's that? Say it, somebody.
Is it through the Shama'il? So knowing how the Messenger of Sallallahu, how he looked and how he,
Shama'il is correct, but there's something before Shama'il. Something that's glaringly obvious, something that's in your face, something that's right there, man. It's right there. It's your first point of call for everything. What's this?
The Quran.
The Quran. So the first thing you need to do to engender love for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is focus on the Quran. And now you're going to say to me, why, Ustaz? Why? Because the Quran mentions Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam a limited number of times, right? It mentions the other prophets more. It mentions half of the Quran is, I'm going to throw you in hell. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to burn you. And the other half of the Quran is, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to give you gardens under which rivers flow. I'm going to do this. I am very forgiving. I am very wrathful. I am Rahim, Ghafur, Rahman, Thawab. I am Qahar, Jabbar. This is the Quran, right? So why am I pointing you to the Quran? Right. Now let's open up the first secret. How many times does Allah mention the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran? Somebody tell me. Anybody? Take a guess. Take a guess. This is famous. Most people know this answer. Any guesses? Come on, I can't see your names. I don't want to play with the Zoom thing because it's the first time I'm using it. So I can't see your names, otherwise I'd call you out. How many times is Allah mentioned is Rasul mentioned in the Quran?
Is this by name, as in Muhammad?
Okay, by name, how many times? Rasul is mentioned. Here is the list. So this is a list of all the prophets mentioned. Musa alayhi salam has been mentioned 136 times. And Rasul if you look for his name, he's mentioned 4 times in the Quran. Amazing, right? Amazing, yes or no?
Yes.
Should I tell you something more amazing than this? These are the 4 times, right? So these are the 4 times in the Surah Al-Imran, Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah Muhammad, and Surah Al-Fath. So we'll read it. I mean, there's barakah for reading it in the English as well. I don't have the Arabic. So God says, and Muhammad, except messenger, has been removed by the apostle. God Almighty said, and Muhammad, except messenger, has been. I think, is there a problem in the translation here? I'll have to double check that one. Muhammad was not the father of any of your men, but he is the messenger of God and the seed of the prophets, and he is the one of God. Yeah, we all know this ayah of the Quran. And those who believe and do righteous deeds and believe in what was revealed to Muhammad, and it is the truth from their Lord. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and those with him plant us to anger the infidels with them. God has promised those of them who believe and do good works forgiveness. I need to double check these translations. Something seems off. But basically, this is the 4 times that everybody knows that Rasulullah has been mentioned, right? Now, let me tell you the most wondrous thing. Directly and or with pronouns or in passing reference, like for example, when Allah says, Qul huwallahu ahad, or Ya ayyuhal mudaththir, or anything like that. When Allah references Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how many times do you think he's been mentioned in the Quran? Take a guess. Come on, we've been going for 3 hours, I think. How long have we been going for now? How many times has he been mentioned? We're towards the end now. Take a guess. No Google searches. Just take a wild guess. 100?
30.
Raise that number. Take another
200?
guess. Oh, come on, that's a bit too slow now. Raise those numbers.
300.
We're talking in the thousands. Let me show you. That's how many times Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has been mentioned in the Quran. Amazing, right?
Yes.
The plus is there because there's a debate on is he mentioned more or less. Now, this is references by pronouns. Every single time you see qul, who's being referenced there? Allah is talking directly to the Prophet. Say, O Muhammad, qul. This is a direct reference to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? When he says, O you who is wrapped up in the black garments. Who's that talking about? Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is mentioned this many times in the Quran. That is more than 1,000 verses. The total verses in the Quran are 6,000 something. That's 1/5 of the Quran mentions Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. 20 surahs and more opening with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like Qul. And 30 surahs end with the mention of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And there are only 8 surahs that do not mention Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in any form. So the Quran is your go-to book. But when we read the Quran, we were never taught to look at it like this, right? So remember the paradigm, the trajectory. You must first know, then you can love, and then you can follow. What do these verses talk about? These verses of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talk about his body. It's too long to give those verses here, but they talk about his body. If I was a hafid, I could have given you these verses by heart in Arabic. They talk about his body, his heart is mentioned, his eyes are mentioned, his words, his dealings, the battles, his family and home, his characters mentioned. That's why we pick up the Quran first. But we need to be taught it with the right teacher who will open these secrets up for us. But nobody sees the Quran like this. Okay, I get it. So how do I proceed? Where do we go from here? Here is the thing that I wanted to tell you right from the beginning. Seerah is a roadmap that everything else is imprinted on. We've all learnt that now. There are actually 5 sciences that help us to understand Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And each of these sciences is better. 4 of those sciences is deeper than the Seerah. The Seerah is a bedrock. We build everything on the Seerah. So we have the Shama'il. Everybody knows what the Shama'il is. We look at it in a minute. We have the Khasa'isa of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We have the Fada'il and the Dalail and Nabuwa. These are the 5 ulum al-Nabuwiyah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that we need to study and we must study. If we don't study these sciences, you cannot claim to know, to love, or to follow. So the Seerah, we know what the Seerah is. It's a chronological incidents and story from beginning to end. The most famous is by Ibn Ishaq in its most well-known rendition by Ibn Hisham, and there are many others, but we're keeping it brief here. Then there is the Shama'il, which deals in the physical characteristics, the attributes, and the possessions of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, for example, how was his cup? How was his spoon? Remember, lovers want to know everything. I learned today that his cup, from the Shama'il, I learned today that his cup had bands of metal around it. There was a wooden cup. And by God, I want to buy a cup like this now. I've seen cups like this. They look like barrels. You know, like you have a barrel that's wooden and it has metal rings around it. I want to buy a cup like this now because Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to drink water from a cup like this. His possessions, his horses, the names of them, his donkey, the names of them, the camel, the names of them, the wives, the name, the clothes, he would name everything, right? The most famous, there are many books through the centuries, but the most famous is by Imam Tirmidhi. Shama'il al-Tirmidhi, we all know this, right? Then there is Dala'il al-Nabuwa. Dala'il al-Nabuwa, the proofs of prophethood. The most famous is by Imam Bayhaqi. It's in 12 volumes. This proves through verses of the Quran and Hadith and natural phenomena and the actions of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his proofs. 12 volumes. Then there is the Fada'il, the Fadila of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that the blessings he was given. So one of the most famous books is Ash-Shifa Baqadi Iyad. Really, there are wonders in that book. There are wonders and secrets in that book if you study that book properly. And then there is the Khasa'isa. These are the things that are unique only to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and nobody else. There are certain things that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had that other prophets had as well, that you had as well. Like in the Fada'il, certain levels of Fada'il, he had more than you. And then, but the Khasa'isa are the things that only he had. Those aspects that are unique to the Prophet. Jalaluddin Suyuti is a famous author who wrote Al-Khasa'is Al-Kubra. It's one of the most famous works on this subject. These are I think this is the end of this is the end of it. So these are the subjects that you need to study if you want to forge a proper relationship with Rasulullah. By studying hadith on its own is not enough. By studying seerah on its own is not enough. By number one, studying the seerah through the Quran, then after building the roadmap, as I told you, building the roadmap, the bedrock, the solid bedrock, which the hadith sits upon, the Quran sits upon, then you study those other books, the Shama'il, the Khasa'isa, the Fada'il, and you put all of that on top of the seerah to gain the deepest understanding and love for Rasulullah. That was the whole point of today's lesson. That's my introduction to today's lesson, the methodology behind the approach to seerah. Jazakum Allah khair for listening. May Allah reward us for this seerah, this journey that we're all taking, following the footsteps of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, our end goal is Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, our end goal is the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah all give us the ability to, they say a journey of 1,000 steps starts with the first step. 1,000 miles starts with the first step. We've taken the first step. The roadmap has been given, the directions have been given. We just need to look for the footsteps now and put our first foot in the footstep of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Keep focused on that, and inshallah we'll get to what we seek. Rumi says, what you seek is seeking you. And what we are seeking ultimately is the love of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah has always been looking towards us because He wants us to face Him. But we are so bad nasib, as they say, we are so miskeen that we turn away. We turn away from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we turn away from Allah. And Allah is everything. Allah, Allah, and nothing besides. Thank you very much for attending. I hope I didn't bore any of you. And are there any questions based on today's lesson? No questions? Who's in the class? I want to see who's in the class. So how does this work?
Ustad, if you go up to the top part of your screen where it says like mic, video and whatnot, there's also a part for participants.
Participants. Oh, mashallah. So we still got, I thought people were leaving. I thought they would have left. Right, so we've got Ayla. Welcome, Ayla. Assalamu alaikum. Masiha, you were there before. Sayyida. Assalamu alaikum. Wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining. Appreciate staying. I didn't expect people to stay for this long, actually, because I told you, for me, it's a very passionate subject, and I've never enjoyed myself more than when I've taught seerah. You know, this is my life. You know, if I could teach one subject forever, it would be the seerah. And you know what? We haven't even started. This is just the first introduction on the methodology. Any questions?
Ustaz, which book, which are the resources that we need to get following
Which
this
books?
course?
At the moment,
Which
there's
are the
no books. Yeah, at the moment, I'm not recommending any books. You can read a seerah book by yourself, any book. Read any seerah book. For me, I would say get Martin Ling's, or there's the other book by Rogerson. Mariam knows the name. I recommended it to her. Barnaby. His book is quite good. Martin Ling's or Barnaby's book, Muhammad, Prophet of God. But at the moment, I mean, I'm not too fussed on everybody reading the seerah, because my way of approach is read one seerah book, but the books that I'm deriving the information from, I will reveal them slowly, right? So I'm not going to give all the secrets away so soon. I want us to go on this journey together. So I'm going to give those secrets away in time, inshallah. But you can read Martin Ling's if you want. You can read Barnaby. I recommend those two. Or you can read any book. The Sealed Nectar, it's very famous. I don't know why it's still famous. It's been surpassed a long time ago. I personally would say there's many other books out there. If you're going to read that book, there's a whole host of other books you can read. I would not, I would overlook that book over any other Seerah book actually. But inshallah, in time, I will let you know. So, any other questions? Last question before we call it a night.
Sorry, Ustaz, will we getting this a copy of the slides or and just the recording?
It's gonna these lessons are gonna be put on Teachable, inshallah. Hopefully within a few days, the lessons will be on Teachable, so you'll be able to see the lessons up there. I'm not sure if there will be copies of slides. There may be, there may not be, but you can certainly see the whole recordings, and then you can just make your own copies as you see fit, or download the lecture or whatever.
Thank you. Jazakallah.
Barakallah feek, barakallah feek. So going 3, 2, 1, 0. Jazakumullah khair, everybody, for joining, and I hope to meet you all next week, inshallah, next Saturday, inshallah. And then I'll put the recording up, and then hopefully once the methodology is done, once we look at source material and analyze some of the source material that people use and the good and the bad of it, then we'll start on the real Seerah, inshallah. And I hope you can stay for the journey. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it here then.
Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah
Jazakum
feek.
khairan.
Barakallah feek.